Welcome to Hitman Boxing. Hit that like and subscribe button. So, it can be frustrating being a professional boxer, right? You have guys who want certain fights, but due to reasons such as there being promotional differences, guys being on different networks, or simply one of the guys just doesn't want to fight. It's all very frustrating. But when you've got a guy that you want to fight, you have a guy that fights on the same network as you, you've got a guy who has the same advisor in Al Heyman. Yet, this fight cannot be made in a reasonable amount of time. You have to wonder, why is that? Why wouldn't this person want to unify with another champion at 147, right? You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Keith Thurman and Errol Spence. And I'm going to try to be as respectful as possible. We'll keep it boxing, okay? Errol Spence beat Kell Brook last year for his IBF championship, right? The big thing was, what did Errol Spence do to deserve a title shot? What did he deserve to get an opportunity to fight Kell Brook, right? Well, he was fighting for the IBF. He fought eliminator after eliminator to become Kell Brook's mandatory. It's very simple, right? So, the IBF made it so Kell Brook couldn't dodge Errol Spence, and he had to face him because he was his mandatory. Otherwise, he would have been stripped. And this was after the Triple G fight, right? So, Kell Brook fights Errol Spence in the UK. Errol Spence is victorious. He beats Kell Brook in his backyard, takes his IBF championship. Now, Kell Brook is not someone that, you know, some of these other top names in the welterweight division were jumping to fight, right? You didn't see Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, Manny Pacquiao jumping to fight Kell Brook. Yet, he was looking to make those fights. The guys just didn't want to fight him, okay? And on top of that, he did beat Shawn Porter, right? But continuing on. Keith Thurman had the WBA championship, right? Danny Garcia beat Robert Guerrero to become the WBC champion at 147, right? Danny Garcia was moving up from 140 to 147. The minute he moved up from 140 to 147, Keith Thurman was looking to make that fight. And he tends to want to make fights with guys who are moving up, okay? Now, he fought Danny Garcia. He beat Danny Garcia to secure his WBC championship, just putting him one step closer to unifying the division at 147, right? So, Keith Thurman previously has talked about knocking opponents out, winning these big fights, very boisterous, very loud. But something happened. I'm not sure what happened, but it could have started with the Shawn Porter situation, right? I mean, remember how he got injured and the fight had to get postponed, and you know, we had Shawn Porter's father telling us that Keith Thurman hadn't signed the paperwork to fight, seemed like he wasn't interested. That's when I first started taking notice about Keith Thurman and really stopped caring about Keith Thurman or liking Keith Thurman as a fighter, because it seemed as if he was afraid to fight Shawn Porter. But in the end, he ended up beating Shawn Porter, right? So, cool. Now, the fight that everybody's talking about at 147 is Keith Thurman and Errol Spence. I mean, who else is a threat to Keith Thurman at 147 pounds? He's already beaten Shawn Porter. He's beaten Danny Garcia. Jeff Horn, that's not looking likely. Jeff Horn's going to be facing Terrence Crawford down the road, hopefully. Terrence Crawford just moved up to 147. So, and plus he's over there with Top Rank, right? So we don't know when Terrence Crawford or if he'll ever even get an opportunity to face one of these PBC fighters, right? But you got a guy who you can make the fight with in Errol Spence near the end of this year. But he refuses to. I get it. He was injured. The elbow injury, I totally understand, okay? He has surgery. He's going to be fighting Jesse Vargas potentially, right? It's not signed, sealed, and delivered yet, but he's supposed to be fighting Jesse Vargas, okay? Tune-up fight. Cool. What's next after that? Sean Porter, rematch. Fine. Okay, fine. Fight Sean Porter again. I think you'll knock Sean Porter out. Then you fight the winner of Danny Garcia, Brandon Rios. Most people are picking Danny Garcia to win that fight. Most people, however, are not picking Danny Garcia to beat Keith Thurman. So we get that rematch, right? So that's 2 fights, 2018, excuse me. It's looking like we're not going to get Spence versus Thurman in 2019. We've heard this from Keith Thurman himself, who says he's not looking to make that fight anytime soon. He's not interested in making that fight. Why is Keith Thurman afraid? What is the big deal? Why can't you just say, hey, you know, we can talk about making that fight beginning of 2019. But we don't know what's going to happen with Keith, man. Anytime they mention Errol Spence's name, his whole demeanor changes up, man. His body language changes. Don't tell me you guys haven't seen him on Showtime Boxing when they're interviewing him. They got Spence at the table, and look how terrified he looks, man. I'm not even joking. I'm being serious. He looks afraid. He knows about those body shots, man. He knows his body can't hold up to those body shots. He's looking for a way out, man. And personally, I don't think Keith Thurman even cares about boxing at the moment. I don't think he's that emotionally invested. He's not hungry no more, man. And when you're not hungry, that poses a problem, especially in boxing, man. If you're just doing it for a paycheck. He said he got an O and he's not afraid to let it go. Then why aren't you talking about Errol Spence? He got the other belt. You could make that fight this year. You could get your tune-up in. Unification takes precedence over a mandatory, right? Like, if Keith Thurman really wanted to, he could fight Errol Spence. He doesn't want to, though. So Errol Spence is doing the right thing by moving on. He's fighting Lamont Peterson, okay? He's fighting him on the 20th of this month, I believe, right? No, that doesn't sound right. 17th? I think he's fighting on the 17th, or whatever. He's fighting in January of 18, right? So he can only fight the guys that are interested in getting in the ring with them. And you know what? That's a good idea. Just keep fighting. Don't let Keith Thurman hold your career up, because he's notorious for doing this. He held up the fight with Sean Porter. So just keep fighting, keep winning. Eventually, that fight will come. Like you said, Keith Thurman is no Floyd Mayweather. He's not a big money fight. He's not a huge star. None of these guys are really huge stars at 147. They're not big names. Keith Thurman's name don't even hold as much weight as Adrian Broner, a guy with 3 losses, man. I'm just saying. We all want this fight with Keith Thurman and Errol Spence, but I don't think we're ever going to see it. I don't think we're going to see it, man. And it's messed up. It's messed up that we're deprived of these fights. Danny Garcia should be fighting Sean Porter right now. They should be fighting for a chance to fight Keith Thurman. But they're not. Any combination of those guys fighting. Errol Spence, Danny Garcia, Errol Spence, Sean Porter. We could have had some of those fights. But no. They all want to act like they're afraid of Errol Spence, and I don't get it. Like, I don't understand. Especially Sean Porter. It makes no sense to me why he seems to want to deflect anytime someone brings up Errol Spence's name. I don't get it. I don't understand, man. I get it with Danny, man. I get Danny. I understand his angle. You know, he's bigger than all those guys at 147. You know, you stand to make a lot of money fighting Danny Garcia. He's got to preserve it. I get it. So it's best he doesn't take tough fights, you know? But I just don't get Sean Porter being afraid. Anyway, 147 is kind of weak right now anyway. I mean, Terrence Crawford being in the mix of things is cool, but if they can't work out agreements with Top Rank, then we're not going to see him fight any of these guys. I'm more so looking toward 154, 160. Light heavyweight, heavyweight. I'm liking those weight classes right now, but 147 is not what it used to be, man. It's just not the same division. Too much cowardice, man. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being a boxing fan, not seeing the fights I want to see when I want to see them. I'm not trying to let this fight marinate. I just want to see Errol Spence beat the living shit out of Keith Thurman. Hitman Boxing. Tell Keefy Poo stop running. Tell Keefy Poo to stop running, man. It's done. We not being respectful no more. He ducking. He ducking hard. Why you running? Keith run time Thurman. Keith once upon a time Thurman. Keith don't get no more knockouts no more. Diego Chavez was your last knockout. We don't count TKOs as knockouts here on Hitman Boxing. We don't do that. You faking injuries, getting in car accidents, talking about you got micro tears. You only got micro shit, nigga. Talking about you getting elbow surgery, but you was just calling out Manny Pacquiao. So what are you talking about? How you go from injured to wanting to fight Pacquiao? You must have found you some salt water or something, huh? These dudes made me sick, man. Then you want to get in the ring, you want to run. You want to run all night. You don't want to finish the show. When you know you can beat these guys, you just coast. Just do enough to get by. Like you did with Danny. You should have stopped him. But you scared. Man, I ain't a Keith Thurman fan. I don't think I'll ever be a Keith Thurman fan as long as he acting like a little punk. And his fans want to condone that, then so be it. Hitman Boxing, I'm out.